Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing tonight, fellas?
Doing good.
Oh,
yeah, doing good.
All right.
Roll Tide.
All right. And our special guest this week, fellow Michigander such as myself, he is the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, James Bloomer. How you doing tonight, James?
Hey, doing good. Vanderbilt's the team.
There you go. Okay, we have week 5 in the books. There are some very good games, some very close games. I think if anyone had placed their bets going off the spread, I think a lot of people had their spreads busted. It was another week in which kickers were pretty much non-existent. I think Mitch mentioned he may, if I can get him to talk about a stat, either Mitch or James, about the kicking this past week. I think that will probably have some coaches changing their strategy with their kickers this week. So we're going to go through that. But then we're going to go ahead and go through the semifinal weekend in the PCFL. There were some good games. There was one definite blowout as we wind down the inaugural season of that. And then we will go into our week 6 games. So if you guys are ready, we are going to go ahead and jump into this. With the first game we have on our list, we have Indianapolis hosting Pittsburgh, which was definitely a back and forth game. Before I mention that, I also want to mention that we had some real good participation on the Friday Night Lights. I think there was like 14 coaches that showed up. So, I think that was probably the most that we've had out there. Watching the game. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I think when it gets to Mitch, he can kind of mention that a little bit. But jumping back into this, we have Indianapolis hosting Pittsburgh. Very good game, very close game. And Indianapolis took this one 18-14. We're going to start with James this week.
It was a great game. It was a great game. One stat that jumps out to me is that Indianapolis was 2 for 8. That just shows that you don't want to, on third downs, you do not want to get to third downs, but they still converted as many first downs as Pittsburgh and pulled it out. See, me losing to Indianapolis wasn't a fluke. Indianapolis is a really good team.
All right. Mitch.
Yeah, that was something that I think we were talking about Friday night. I know that Tim was aggravated about his third down efficiency, but I think we were pointing out to him was that, hey, you had the same number of first downs as Pittsburgh, but you only needed 2 third downs to get those 20 versus Pittsburgh, had to have 7. So first and second down was definitely a little bit more explosive for Indy, which to help them, generate just a few extra points in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh still played some fantastic defense as they are number 1 in scoring defense. But Indy found a way to win, so nice job.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I remember I was the only one here last week to predict that Indianapolis was going to win this game. You were all picking Pittsburgh. You two did, and Rich did. And, we see that both teams played fairly well on defense, but Indianapolis just did a little bit more, and they managed to win. And I think this team is for real and may challenge the Jets for the division this season.
All right. Next up, we have Jacksonville hosting Las Vegas. Another close game here as as Jacksonville took this one 20-17. Mitch.
Yeah, stat lines were pretty much even up and down the board here for these teams. I mean, the difference really became the turnovers for Las Vegas. Losing those 2 fumbles plus having a third fumble definitely screwed up their momentum on offense. And it was just enough for Jacksonville to find a way to squeeze out 20 points to get the victory. So nice job, Jack.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, this result is kind of what Jerry talked about, that he wants his team to score 20 or more points and hold the team to fewer points, and that's exactly what Jacksonville did. A fairly close game, and unfortunately for the Raiders, it puts them in the status of being one of the few teams that's 0-5, and that's not a good place to be in. So I don't know what we're going to see from this team for the rest of the season. 0-5 is pretty tough hole to come back out of during the season.
All right, James.
It's hard to win games when you only complete 49% of your passes. So turnovers plus the completion percentage probably is the key. But, yep, that's it.
All right. Next game up, we have Denver hosting Los Angeles, and L.A., he put it on them as they took this one 41-22. Dean.
Yeah, what happened here is LA ran a very effective offense, and that definitely made the difference. And I think maybe he scouted, or maybe he didn't scout, but I would think he scouted Denver's defense. And, Denver had figured out something on defense had been working, but apparently the Chargers figured out something that worked against that defense and did it quite well. So you get this 41-22 score. And it's not what I predicted. I picked the Broncos to win this game, but that didn't happen.
All right, James.
The key is the 2 interceptions. When you throw 2 interceptions, that puts you behind and you can't keep up. Caleb Williams played lights out. From what Steve said, he just threw he was basically trying a bunch of LA plays. So it really was a throw together offensive plan that just seemed to work. But he somehow wins when he's not trying. I want to know how he does it.
All right. Mitch.
Well, they say dumb luck is better than bad luck. So maybe that's what it is, James. I don't know. I agree, James, with the 2 picks by Denver. But also, too, they had 3 fumbles. They didn't lose any of those fumbles. But if I remember correctly, and if y'all remember, correct me on this, it seems like when Denver played Green Bay, they had a bunch of fumbles in that game too. I don't think they lost those fumbles, but it seemed like they had a bunch of fumbles in those games as well. So I'm not sure what the deal is with the type of gloves the Denver team is wearing right now, but seem to have trouble holding the ball. But yeah, the story definitely was what is it here? 830 combined passing yards in this game. I mean, does anyone even run anymore? 28 combined running attempts, for crying out loud. But anyway, fun game.
All right. Next game up, we have Houston Oilers hosting the Washington Redskins, and it was a rough outing again for Mitch as Washington took this one 22-10. James, what's up?
I'll read this one stat line. 22 carries, 32 yards for 1.5 yards per carry. They did get 1 touchdown. That was Houston trying to run the ball. Maybe Houston needs to follow the example of the other teams and just throw it.
Never!
Dean, you're up. What do you got, Dean?
Yeah, I'm going to focus in on that. And that 1.5 yards per carry looks exactly like what my team did week 1 against Minnesota. And it looks like here, what I think is supposedly his best running back ran 11 times for 1 yard. Not 1 yard. Ran 11 times for 1 yard for an average of 0.1 yards per carry. I don't know how that happens. I'm not slamming anyone as criticizing anything. I'm just saying, how does that happen? How does a talent?
Apparently Anderson should have ran the ball instead of ETN, for crying out loud. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's like some kind of weird anomaly of football pro or something, that a good running back, and I don't know, it doesn't make sense, but it happened. And I had put a lead pipe lock on Houston, and I said at the time last week, you may remember, I said, this is not a lead pipe curse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mitch, talk to us, Coach.
Well, as I have done deep analysis on this game, which is looking at the stats right this second. That 11 carries for 1 yard. Yeah, that's not gonna win you many games. It's so not sure what in the world happened with that. But as I said before the game, Jerry and I always have fun, tough games, and this is one where my offense stunk it up, and apparently. I don't know if it's couldn't get a block or couldn't break tackles or what, but my running game stunk it up this week. So only thing we can do is try again this week.
All right. Next up, we have New England taking on the New York Giants, and Mock showed up today or on this day and took this game 24-10. Mitch.
Yeah, I keep thinking, all right, I think the Giants are going to turn that corner. They'll play some teams tough. I know they played Chicago super tough in that overtime loss the week before, and then, this happens. They play Vanderbilt. Man.
I
don't know. I'm sure. Those 3 interceptions by Daniel Jones definitely helped out that that New England offense. But, I'm sure Sean will figure it out, though.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I'm going to start playing the Mitch role here when, Mitch was demanding that Tim put Kyle Allen in as quarterback. I think the Giants fans are going to start demanding that Anthony Richardson be put in at quarterback. 3 interceptions is just not getting it done. It's just not. I mean, it just doesn't.
Kyle Allen should have been MVP for 3 seasons in Indy, but I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm. All right, James.
Yeah, it's the 3 interceptions. You can't give a team short fields in this league. Even the bad teams are going to score on you.
Yep. All right. Talking about bad team scoring, Seattle was hosting Philadelphia this week.
And Seattle did score. You're right.
No, Philly did score. So definitely, I would say was it was definitely a good game. 2 good teams up there. Definitely Seattle put up did their best, put forward, but as the woes of the kickers continue, that pretty much was the undoing, but Philly walked away with a 24-23 victory. Dean.
Yeah, I don't know what to say with this. It was a tough, close game, and the stats are pretty close, and I don't know. It's a tough break for Seattle, though. I mean, it was a home game for Seattle, and yes, I did pick. Wasn't a lead pipe lock, but I picked Seattle to win, and it didn't happen. So,
yep. Mitch.
I think it was an opportunity to win a key game for Seattle, and they didn't do it.
Yep. Mitch, what do you got?
Yeah. Yes, obviously tight game. The fumbles and that missed field goal definitely got in the way for Seattle. But I just want to give hats off to Jalen Hurts, player of the game for Philadelphia, who Seattle had signed to a big contract last season to be the backup for, old Wilson, and then they let him go, and now he comes back and takes the victory. So congratulations to Jalen.
Yeah. James, go ahead.
I just want to point out that Hurts threw 2 touchdown passes and ran for 1. So all the touchdowns for Philadelphia were scored by him. But no, I think Seattle outplayed me, and they probably deserve the win. And I will take being lucky over being good any day of the week. So I'll take the win. Seattle deserved it, though.
Yeah.
Hey, James, I want to remind you, the only team that deserves the win is the team with the most points.
That's true. I will say that it was a good game. It was a good battle. I mean, every quarter it was he'd score a field goal, I'd score a field goal. He'd score a touchdown, I'd score a touchdown. It just that constant battle. And then there was the field goal that was missed, and then the extra point for the touchdown at the end, and he came back and capitalized on the extra point, and we didn't. So,
well, that's the perfect point to mention the stat that I mentioned earlier: the 13 and 23 for field goal for the whole league this season.
Yes,
this week. Why are we kicking field goals? Let's just go for it.
Yep, that was one of the things we were talking about in the pre-show was, the kickers, just terrible, horrendous. We talked about that during the Friday Night Lights program also, the poor kicking. So, anyhow, go back to the lab and try again. Next game up, we have our overtime game. We have the New York Jets taking on the Minnesota Vikings. And the Jets, it took them to go into that extra frame, but they ended up taking this one 27-21. James, we're going to start with you.
Minnesota looked like they were going to win this game. It looked like they were getting lucky and pulling it out, and the Jets came back and tied it up and ended up pulling out in overtime. But the thing that I'll point out is Mitch goes, you need to run on the Jets. You need to run on the Jets. 27 carries, 69 yards for 2.6 yards per carry. They did get 2 touchdowns, but, it's kind of hard to run on the Jets.
Yeah.
Yep. Mitch.
I completely disagree with James because Minnesota is able to keep the New York Jets offense off the field by grinding those 2.6 yards a carry and get those 2 touchdowns. But no, I agree. It looked like it was going to be the Minnesota game, and both teams missed a field goal, so you can't really say it's just because of that. But it reminded me kind of that Giants Chicago game from I think the previous week or 2 weeks ago, where it was like, all right, Minnesota's going to get this, and then whoop, at the end, overtime, and then whoop, I think they did the interception in overtime or something, and they lost. But it was a good game. Good game.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, it was kind of a disappointing game. I thought we were watching Minnesota beat the Jets, and it looked like that was happening until late in the fourth quarter when the Jets tied it. And then, because, as I always say, the team that ties it up near the end usually has more momentum going into the overtime, and that's what happened here. And the Jets won the overtime game. So,
all right. Next game up, we have Atlanta hosting Chicago, and close by touchdown by touchdown and the 2-point convert, but Atlanta dropped this one by losing to Chicago 25-17. Mitch.
Yeah, well, in this one here, you look at the stat line. Hendon played like a Tijuana hooker, that's for sure. 48% completion for 188. Definitely not his best game against Chicago. It's really, you look at the stat lines and you kind of go, how in the world was this even a one-score game? But fumbles by Chicago, kind of stymied out a few drives, and Atlanta did get a couple of big plays to flip the field and get into scoring position. But another close game for Chicago, but another victory.
All right, James, what do you got?
I just can't. I just look at the first down, and I don't even understand how you can be in a game with only 10 first downs. That was great coaching to pull that off, because there's no way that I could do it. But other than that, I'm just impressed that you stayed close. It was pretty good. I remember the game, and it looked like Atlanta was going to be in it the whole game, and they were. So but yeah, the 10 first downs that's got to change. But
all right, Dean, what do you got?
The 10 first down makes sense because my team wasn't really in the game. I mean, up until near the end, it was 25-10, which really reflected my defense played better, and the defense was fairly respectable to hold Chicago to 25 points, but the offense was nearly non-existent. I mean, the running game was terrible. 17 carries for 58 yards for an average of 3.4. The passing game was just horrendous. 48% completions for a total of 188 yards. I mean, that doesn't get it done. So, like I said, the score was 25-10 because that reflected really what was going on. I think the defense kind of slowed down Chicago and did the best it could, but had no support from the offense. When the offense repeatedly goes up, 3 and out or doesn't hold the ball very long, punted 5 times, there's not a whole lot the defense can do with that. The defense had to play 38 minutes and 1 second of time. It's really a reflection of the defense playing fairly well that they only gave it 25 points in more than 38 minutes of time of possession on the part of Chicago. So this time was a complete failing of the Atlanta offense to do much of anything. The 17 points makes it look better than it was. The offense was pathetic. Like I said, it was 25-10.
All right, going to the last game of Week 5, we have San Francisco hosting Green Bay. Shuggy's out there struggling a little bit. I'm sure Mitch is going to have to say something about Shuggy's sweeps or screens or whatever he has going on out there, as San Francisco took this one 42-28. Dean, you're up.
Yeah, San Francisco Green Bay had 497 yards of total offense, but they also had a couple turnovers, and San Francisco played free of turnovers and played pretty balanced offense, running for 183 yards and having 237 net yards of passing. So that balanced offense was enough for the 49ers to score 42 points and win this game by 2 touchdowns over Green Bay.
All right. James, what do you got?
San Francisco just seemed like they were firing on all cylinders on offense. You can't find anything wrong with it, really. And Green Bay, the run team somehow threw 48 passes. I'm confused by that. That big of a switch usually doesn't work out well, but they put up points. Green Bay's a team to watch, I guess.
Okay. Mitch, what you got?
I agree, James. If Green Bay would have ran the ball like they normally do, they'd probably win this game. So I don't know what Shuggy's thinking. That's all I got to say about this one. All
right. So we've run through all the Week 5 games. We're going to pivot on over to the PCFL. We are down to the final 4 in the PCFL. Running through the quarterfinal games, we had LSU beating Clemson 38-17. We had Colorado beating Ohio State 23-16. Texas was all over UCLA 67-7. And we had Washington defeating Florida State 40-20. So for the semifinal game right now, we have Texas taking on LSU and Washington taking on Colorado. I'm going to pass this over to Dean to have anything else he wants to add with the PCFL this week. So what's going on over there besides those games?
Yeah, pretty much we have those 2 games in which you just mentioned, and the winners of those 2 games will play for our first ever PCFL National Championship the following week. And after that, we'll go into off season and we'll take a little bit of time to try to recruit some coaches for those open CPU teams. And then we're going to go into recruiting, because the seniors will graduate, and we'll be recruiting new players to replace those in the recruiting process. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point. We're near the end of this first season, and overall the season has gone pretty well. And that's what we have this weekend. And you can see in the scores, Colorado won a pretty competitive game over Ohio State. Texas scored quite a few points against UCLA and currently played pretty aggressive offense and went for a number of 2-point conversions. Washington had a pretty solid win, going 40-20 over Florida State. And, that was the issue I mentioned last week, that the quirk of using the power ranking put Florida State instead of Florida in that playoff game. But, Mark, I think your team would have beat either one anyway, so I don't think that really makes a whole lot of difference. You just beat one CPU team instead of beating the other. And that's the other thing I want to mention. Some of us human coaches have struggled against the CPU teams more than I expected to during the regular season. But I want to commend all of the coaches in this first round of the playoffs for defeating and eliminating all of the CPU teams that made the playoffs. So we have 4 teams left this coming weekend that are all human coached. The CPU teams have all been eliminated.
So this will definitely be an interesting week as far as the coaches getting themselves prepared for the games coming up this week. Now, you mentioned the open teams. How many currently we have, 6 teams or 5 teams? How many teams do we have open?
We have 6 CPU teams and 12 human coach teams. So the more of those 6 we can fill, the better.
All right. And going into the, you mentioned the graduating class, and then you have the recruiting coming in. Just give them a quick overview again, what to look for as we go into the recruiting season.
Yeah, it varies across the board. Some teams are losing as few as maybe like 8 seniors, and a couple of the teams are close to 20 seniors that they're losing, and those will all be replaced with recruiting. One thing I'd recommend in the case of some teams where you have a situation where you might be losing close to 20 players, I mean, they'll all have to be replaced, but the following season, you figure some of those 20 players you'll replace with players that are kind of at the lower end of the spectrum in talent level. That means when you reach a season where that team might only have 8 seniors graduating, some of those lower rated players can be replaced with better recruits. And the thing that I used to try to do when I was in Steve's XFBS league was to try to stick to a number of around 12 players who would graduate each season and replace those in recruiting, just to have kind of an even number in every class on my team. And I would advise teams to try to level it out and do that, because there was one season in that league where I had to replace like 16 players, and then I tried to gradually replace some of those, so that each season I was generally replacing about 12 players. So I wasn't filling roster spots with players that were lower in talent, because you have that one year where you need to, recruit 16 or 18 or 20 players. So that's one thing I would advise teams to keep in mind as they, manage their rosters going forward.
Okay. All right. One last question. Is there an option available for any 5th-year seniors, or that's it? They're 4 and they're done?
They're 4 and they're done. And I want to make one other comment too. And I know I sent an email, but if you folks can get your game plans, your PPPs in early enough on Friday morning, what I would like to do, if possible, is play those games. And if maybe, I don't know what time we're going to start Friday Night Lights this weekend, maybe it would be good, because I think a lot of people would like to see those 2 games this weekend. If we can start a little bit earlier, and one of us, I could do it or Mitch could do it, either way, but one of us could stream those 2 games, and then right after stream those games, go straight into streaming PNFL games. These are going to be 2 really good games. LSU at Texas, I mean, I guess if I were being like Rich and putting a spread on it, I would probably put a spread of 10.5 or 12.5 or something in Texas. Then Colorado at Washington. I think that's going to be very competitive. I'd almost be tempted to say that's a pick'em game or something pretty close. Maybe give a slight edge to Washington, being the home team. But I think that's going to be a very competitive game. But I think they're both going to be good games to watch. And regardless of who wins, I think we'll have a good championship game the following weekend. And maybe we want to aim to do the same thing, stream that game as the first game on Friday, and then stream the PNFL games right after that.
All right. All right, we're going to spin over to our last segment, which is the Week 6 games. Looking at the stats for the Week 6 games, I see we have 2 pick'em games. I see 1, 2, 3 games with over a 10-point spread, and the rest is within the normal, touchdown or touchdown or less. So you guys know the deal. They get their lead pipe locks, and we're going to jump right into this. First game on the list, we have the Atlanta Falcons hosting the New England Patriots, our first pick'em game of the week. James, you're up.
Atlanta.
All right.
I'm not sold on New England.
Okay. Mitch.
I'm going to take the non-Vanderbilt team. I'm going with Atlanta.
All right. Dean.
That's interesting. I don't know. This game is probably going to be close, and I don't know. Maybe home field advantage could make a difference, but we'll see.
All right. I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think the home field is going to play a role into this one and give them the edge. Next game up, we have the New York Jets taking on the Indianapolis Colts. They are giving the Jets 10.5. Mitch.
I'm going with Jets.
All right. Dean.
I was thinking, this whole Vanderbilt thing, you're giving Marsh stuff to put up on the board in the locker room.
Trying to motivate him, Dean. It's reverse psychology, trying to motivate him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this game, I think Tim saw the game last week, and I think he's going to come up with something. His team is going to do some things. I'm picking the upset here. The Colts are going to win. Show that team is the real deal.
All right.
The infamous things that people do.
James, you're up.
I think Thomas is basically in autopilot mode, so the Colts will win.
Ooh.
Our Jets are going on.
I'm going with the Jets. Right? I'm going with the Jets on this one. Yeah. No, James brought up a good point about them being on autopilot. It made me think, well, are they? Could be. Who knows?
Here's the thing. Is there a strong chance that Indy keeps it within that 10.5-point spread? I think so, but I still think the Jets will end up winning.
Yeah.
But they may be the best autopilot team in the history of the PNFL.
Could be.
Yeah, because they've been on autopilot for about, 12 seasons now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Season?
Pretty much.
I think the only season they weren't was the season after Steve won the Super Bowl and they had a point to prove. Other than that, I think Thomas has been on autopilot during the season.
Yeah, till the playoffs. Yeah.
All right, I'm going with the Jets. Next game, we have our second pickup game of the week. We have the New York Giants taking on Jacksonville. Dean, you're up.
Yeah, I think the home team is going to win, the Giants, but I can't say I'm incredibly confident in this pick. But how can you be confident in either team? But yeah, I think the Giants will win this game.
All right, James.
I think the Giants are going to dominate, and putting my lead pipe lock on the Giants.
Okay. Mitch.
I agree. I'm going with the Giants.
All right. I will concur. I will go with the Giants as well. Next game up, we have San Francisco hosting Las Vegas. They are giving the Raiders 8.5. James.
This one's a tough one for me. I think I'm probably going to go with the Niners, but the Raiders seem to prepare well against certain teams, and I think the Raiders might surprise people. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that spread, but I think the Niners will pull it out.
All right. Mitch.
Every time we start buying into San Francisco, they usually have a egg-laying game. So I'm putting the lead pipe on Las Vegas for the upset this week.
Oh, ho, ho.
Hey, Mitch, I got a stat for you. The AFC West is 5-8 against teams outside of the AFC West.
Cool.
The only team that's actually got above 500 is Denver, who is 4-0.
Sweet.
Okay. Dean.
Yeah, I think this might be, and I know there's risk in this pick too, but I think this is one of those times where, because I know many times I'll pick the 49ers to win and cover the spread, and they win by 2 points. But no, I think the 49ers are going to win, and I'm going to see you and call on that lead pipe lock. I'm going to put a lead pipe lock on the 49ers to win this game.
Okay.
I want to switch to the Raiders winning.
I say all in on Las Vegas, baby.
I'm going to call for the upset on Vegas this week. I'm calling for the upset with Vegas this week. So, all right.
Jesus, I could put a lead pipe lock on something, and you all think it's a lead pipe curse, and
Yeah.
the team.
Run to the bank, empty out your safe deposit boxes of all those old coins. Put them on the Raiders.
There you go. Next game up, we have Houston taking on L.A. I think this is going to be a good one. I think it's going to be much closer than the spread of 6.5. We're going to start with Dean.
This, I guess you don't know which Chargers team is going to show up, but, I think the way they played offense last week, I think they're going to show up, and I think they're going to pull off an upset here. So I'm picking the Chargers.
All right. James.
I'm not sure what Oilers team's going to show up.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, I'm going to go Chargers because I don't know if the Oilers can score.
Okay. Mitch.
The Oilers will score, and we're going to win.
Sorry, Mitch. I got to go with L.A. this week. Well,
y'all must have forgotten, just the week before, Baker Mayfield just threw for like 1,000 yards on Los Angeles and one player of the week, but that's okay.
Uh-huh.
Your top right.
We're giving you locker room material.
Yards.
You're going to change.
I've decided since he threw for 1,000 yards 2 weeks ago that I'm going to run the ball 47 times this week just to make up for the difference.
You're going to change the lyrics of that song, and it's going to say Houston Oilers 2-4.
There you go.
Right.
Never thought I'd hear that.
Wow. The next one up, we have Pittsburgh hosting Denver. They are giving Steelers 4.5 on this one. Steve, we'll start with. We'll go with Mitch.
Yeah, this, I don't know. Obviously, Denver just had that first loss of the season, and before, that game, they had the number one scoring defense in the league. Well, that one game kind of blew that up for them, but they can still play defense there. But Pittsburgh currently has the number one scoring defense in the league. Hence why it's tough for people who play in the AFC West to actually score points because everybody plays defense in the AFC West. But anyway, I think I'm going to go with Pittsburgh in this game, but just because I think they've had their success a little bit longer than Denver, but Denver's still, I think, a very, very capable team right now. I think it's going to be tight.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, both these teams lost last week, but something tells me that Denver is going to rebound from that tough game last week and win this one on the road.
All right. James.
I'm just going to go with the Steelers. It really is a coin flip, but I'm just going to pick the Steelers.
I'm going to go against my normal calling for the Steelers. I'm going to call for the upset, and I'm going to put my lead pipe lock this week on the Broncos to take this one. Next game up, we have Washington taking on Philly. They are giving the Redskins 6.5. We're going to start with Mitch.
Let's go with the Redskins.
Okay. Dean.
You know, the one thing that's happened most of the recent seasons, except for that one season in which his team, James's team was then Detroit and beat Jerry 3 times, is that the Redskins have won the division. I don't think Jerry is going to be too willing to let that go. So I think he's going to be focused and put together a solid game plan. And I think the home team will. I'm not saying they'll cover the spread or not cover the spread, but I think Washington will win a close game in this matchup.
All right.
You know, and I will say this, Mark, as a bit of advice for the team that just played Washington, I highly, highly recommend that Philadelphia run the football. You got to control the football against Washington. So I highly recommend running the ball at least 30 to 35 times.
Yep, that way I can score 10 points. Yep, okay.
Coach Bloomer, what do you got?
Honestly, Jerry always prepares for me. It'll be a good game. We always play close, but I'll pull it out.
All right. I'm going to call for the upset this week. I know we just played last week. I know there's a lot of banter going on between both of us. I think our games are kind of competitive. I won the game last season. He took this one. But he played tough, so I'm going to call for the upset for Philly to take this one. Yes, I know. I said it. Last 2 games for week 6. First one we have Minnesota taking on Seattle. They are giving the Vikings 13.5. James, what do you got?
Can I double the spread?
If you want,
Vikings are going to win it.
Okay, all right.
They're not.
Go ahead, James. Go ahead. Go ahead. Talk your trash. Our game's over. Talk your trash. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The Vikings will cover. Seattle make it tough, but the Vikings will cover this. Vikings are just too good of a team.
All right, Mitch.
Yeah, I think Seattle will make it tough for Minnesota to, win by 35. No, I'm kidding. No, Minnesota's going to win. We'll see what happens as scores goes. But, Minnesota, strong team, should have won or could have won last week and be undefeated. So I'm going Vikings.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I think last week was kind of a fluke, but I think in this game the Vikings are going to do what the Vikings do, and I think they will win. I can't guarantee they'll cover that spread. They might. I mean, the Seahawks could give them a challenge, but I think Minnesota will still win.
I'm calling for the upset. Go Hawks. Last game of the week, we have Chicago taking on Shuggy and the Packers. They are giving the Cardinals 17.5. Mitch.
You know what? Hey, I'm going to take Chicago, but I think Shuggy will keep it within the spread.
All right. Dean.
I think this game is going to be closer than the spread, and I'm not saying that Chicago is on autopilot, but I don't know, they don't seem to be quite as competitive as they have been, and I think Chicago will win, but I see like a 4 or 5 point game, and I don't know whether the Packers are going to get ahead early and then lose the lead, or they're just going to stay in it and stay close but fall just short. But however it happens, I think the spread won't be covered, but Chicago will win.
All right. James.
Chicago will cover. Justin remembers he lost to Green Bay last season. He will make a point. They will cover.
All right. I'm going to go for Chicago as well. So we are wrapped up our show for the week. A lot of wide spreads out there, a couple pick'em games. Should be interesting. We're down to the final 4 in the PCFL. So I'm sure Mitch and Dean will try to work things out. So you guys will be listening on the on our chat I think, the Discord channel and on the WhatsApp to see what the schedule is going to be for the games coming up. So as we make our last round across the table, we're going to first thank Coach Bloomer for coming in. And any final words you have, James?
I'd say make sure you guys check the forums. We have a discussion on the draft and possibly hiding potentials and discussing incentives for people who create plays. And those are both two discussions that should be happening. So.
All right. Dean, anything else? What do you got?
I'm just noticing with your last comment, 3 of these games have a spread of 10.5 or higher, and one of them is 8.5, so that's 4 games that the spread is saying are basically not going to be close, and then we have 2 pick'em games, so that's kind of interesting. I mean, we view the league as being competitive and having a lot of parity, but yet we have 4 games, according to these spreads, are not expected to be close, where one team is expected to win by more than a touchdown, and even the Redskins game and the Oilers game are 6.5 spreads. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Rich isn't doing that because that's what he thinks what's going to be. He's doing it to try to balance out the betting. His goal is to try to get half the coaches on one side and half the coaches on the other. If you make a Chicago or Jets game close, everybody bets Chicago and the Jets, so those spreads will always be wide.
Right, I realize that's what he's doing, but it does still indicate a perception of how much these teams are going to win by. So it's still interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm. Mitch, any final words before you take us home, sir?
This week, Friday Night Lights. There could be a delay, or there could be potentially at least for myself, I won't be able to participate in Friday Night Lights. So I'm going to reach out to a few of you all to see if some of you all would be kind enough to maybe host this week due to some scheduling conflicts I'm going to have. But I'm sure somebody will. So we'll keep everybody updated since we're recording this on Monday. So we'll keep y'all updated on kind of what's going on. But I'm hopefully either myself or I'll be able to get someone to get those games streamed this week like we normally do. Because as Mark said, we had quite a full house last week, and we had a lot of fun. So don't want to lose that momentum. And so with that being said, Mark, I guess the only thing left to do now is let's get it.